All right, welcome. This is a human design basics. We're going to actually do a live chart, and Ellen was gracious enough to volunteer to let us walk through your chart so that you can understand the basics of how to get started with human design, how to get your chart, how to read your chart, and where you want to start. So, Ellen, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me for this presentation today. I really appreciate you volunteering your time and letting me share this in my community. So thank you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I'm going to learn a lot today too.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I love sharing human design because it really is so life changing, and it's a whole lot more fun for me to do this live with somebody as opposed to me just sitting here talking to my webcam and not getting the interaction. So yeah, I'm definitely very grateful that you're here with me today. All right, so for those of you who are watching who don't yet have your human design chart, then the website that I recommend to get your chart is mybodygraph.com. And Ellen, if you don't already have an account with them, I definitely highly recommend. This is my favorite place to go. And what you'll need is you'll need your birth information. So you need your birth date, you need your time as exact as possible. So if you need to try to find your birth certificate or ask your parents, or if there's some other way where you can find that exact time, that's definitely best to start from that place. And if not, then if you know that you're born in the morning, in the afternoon, or the evening, do your best to guess that approximate time if you can. And if you're completely not sure at all, then just go ahead and start with noon, and then you can always run your chart later for different times during that day and see if there are any things that change in your chart. And also, you'll need to enter your birthplace, so your country, your state, and your city. And you need that not so that they know all your personal information, but so that they can calculate the correct time zone, because time zone does change what your chart might say. So once you get your chart, you're going to see something like this. And I'm just going to quickly go through what you're going to see here in the chart. So in human design, there are 9 centers, and you can see in this body graph here, 8 of the 9 in this one are colored. So your centers in your chart will either be colored or they'll be white. And so like the ones that you see here that are yellow or red, those colors don't change and have different meanings. It's either colored or it's white. Does that kind of make sense? And then, so on your chart, you'll see there are squares on either side that have numbers and symbols in them. And one side is black and one side is red. Um, and and this side that's black gets calculated at that exact time that you're born. And the red side gets calculated 88 days before you're born. And it's based on the positioning of the planets. So the we've got the sun and the earth. These are the nodes, the north node and south node. And then we've got the moon and then all the planets. And so based on that positioning, it activates different gates in your chart. And the gates are the numbers that are in the centers. So the numbers you see in the black boxes and the red boxes will correspond with the lines that you see colored in on your chart, either red or black. And it'll be for the numbers in that center that correspond with the ones you see on the sides. And then the lines in between each of the centers, these are referred to as channels. So does all of that make sense so far? Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll have questions down the road, but so far so good. Thank you.
Perfect. And feel free to jump in, ask questions, because like I said, I want this to be a conversation and not just me like talking at you, because it's a lot more fun that way. And I really think too, I've been studying this for a few years now, so all of it makes sense to me. So if I say something that doesn't make sense to you, then it will probably help other people who watch this later too to have that question asked. So feel free to interrupt at any time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the 9 centers, and Ellen, I don't know, are you familiar with the 7 chakras?
Yes, I was going to ask if these are related because I see some commonalities.
Right, exactly. And so according to human design, as a race, as the human race, we shifted from being 7-centered beings to 9-centered beings back in the 1700s. And so, yes, you'll see some correlations here, and then there are two additional centers that you won't see in the chakra systems. So we have the head, and ajna is actually the Sanskrit word for third eye, so that does correspond to with the chakras. And we have the throat. The G center is this yellow one here. This is one of the ones that we don't see in chakras. Then we have the heart, the solar plexus, the sacral center. The spleen is the other additional one, which is the brown one over here, and then the root. And each of those centers has their own energy that they process. And when that center is colored in your chart, that means you have consistent, reliable access to the energy that that center processes. And when it's white in your chart, that means that you don't have consistent, reliable access to that energy. And so that the white centers are where we're vulnerable to take on other people's energy in a way that causes us to feel like we should be something that we're not, or that we're missing something, we're lacking something. But at the same time, so the world works in dualities, right? So like where it can be more challenging to have white centers, on the other side of that coin, it's also where we have the greatest potential for wisdom. Because we have that openness in our chart, we are able to experience that energy from other people and different energy based on the people we're around. That helps us to understand the world more and from different perspectives.
So it's like a capacity that we could take things in.
Yes.
So
right.
it's like either default we are influenced by other people,
Exactly.
or we say, okay, I'm going to take all of this and incorporate it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. And that energy that you're going to absorb through your white centers, you're going to absorb it, but you're also going to amplify it. So that's something that we'll talk about too as we look at your chart and your specific centers. But so yeah. Okay. And so here are the list of the black side and red side. So here, like I said, are all of the sun and the earth and the nodes, and then all of the planets. So that's what the symbols, that those are the planets that they correspond to. And like I said, the ones that show up on your black side, you'll see the black line going up to that center, and you'll see the gray circle around the gate number. The red one's the same. And it is possible to have a gate activated on both sides of your chart. So if that's the case, you'll see both black and red. Now that black side, that's referred to as the personality side of your chart. And so that's who you think you are. The traits that get activated by those gates, you're likely to see in yourself and like kind of recognize and identify with those traits. The ones that show up on your red side, and again, those get calculated 88 days before you're born, that's your design side. So that's who you really are at the core. And often we're unconscious to those traits. So we have a hard time seeing those traits in ourselves, but usually the people, especially the ones that know us really well, easily see those traits in us.
That's such an interesting thing, because I'm always struck by that duality. Like, I think I'm a certain way, and I have, all of these things that I think and say to myself. And then I talked to a friend and they said, no, you're completely like I have always known this about you. And I'm like, how? how could that viewpoint? I mean, like, I'm with me all the time. How could you see that about me? And I don't see that about myself.
Yes. And this is why. So those things are more than likely on your red side of your design. And it's really interesting. And so human design is all about taking both sides of us, right? That black side that we identify with and the red side that we're often unconscious to, and marrying those two. And it's not that one's right or wrong or good or bad, but it's really finding the way for both sides of us to coexist and really kind of join them together in harmony. That makes sense. Okay. Okay, so last I'll talk a little bit about the channels. So when both gates on either side of the lines that go in between two centers get activated in your chart, then that fills in or colors in that whole channel between those two centers. And so this could happen. It could be black, as you can see in this one, or it could be red, or it could be a combination. And regardless of the color, that still gives you that channel, which they refer to as a strength that you have. So these are your natural strengths that we'll see in the channels. And when that happens, then both centers that touch that line get colored in and are defined. So that's how your centers get colored, is because the channel completes it, and it completes that channel for the energy to flow between those two centers and, communicate.
So when you say activate, is that something that I can consciously, like it seems like there are some things that are already activated or not activated, but is there something I can do to activate them consciously or?
Nope, nope. So this gets fixed and it's at the energy level. So it's not something you do or that you learn or that you change. So your design actually is fixed, and it's really just a matter of understanding your design and living in alignment with that design and really appreciating your design, whether you have those traits active or you don't, whether you have those centers defined or undefined, and just seeing the perfection in that's your design, and your design is perfect for you and your uniqueness and the purpose that you're meant to live.
Okay.
Good question. Okay, so when you have a line where half of it is colored, like you can see here, this little black line, and the other side is white, then they refer to that as a hanging gate. And so what does happen is that we, on the unconscious level, at the energetic level, look for people who help to bridge those gaps for us, who help to fill in the other side of our line, and they're referred to as hanging gates. So that's where attraction comes in. We are attracted to people that fill in that other half of our hanging gate. And again, it's not like at the conscious level, and it happens organically and naturally at the energetic level. So it can be really interesting to see people that are closest to you, and you can look at their chart next to your chart and how they match up, and you can see how many they call it electromagnetic channel, when you fill half and the other person fills half. And so when you're in the aura of someone else that fills in that gap, it does give you temporary access to that energy that you don't have on your own.
Hmm. Is there a way for me to recognize those people, or is it just that I'm naturally drawn to them?
Yeah, you'll naturally be drawn to them, and you won't necessarily consciously think about it or realize that that's what's happening. And so oftentimes when people hear this too, then they intentionally look for people that have the gate that fills it in. But really that doesn't tend to work that way, where you can just look for those people, because there's so much going on and so many other layers and so many other interactions that happen within the chart, especially if the other person isn't aware of their human design and are living in alignment with their design.
Okay.
So, and most of us aren't, right? Most of us are operating from that energy that we're bringing in from other people, which human design refers to as conditionings or not self. So most of us are operating from that place. And when that's the case, when we're operating from not self and not in alignment with our design, then even if we have like compatible charts, it won't matter because we're not living our design anyway.
Mm-hmm. It seems like there's some similarity here between the hanging gate and the non-colored centers. That,
Exactly.
like
Right.
we're open to be influenced from the outside,
Yes.
consciously or unconsciously.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Because if we don't have a full channel and we only have hanging gates like you can see here, then those channels have to be white. The only way that a center gets colored is when the full channel is colored.
Got it. Okay.
All right, so quick question. So do you ever struggle with making decisions
All the time.
all the
All the
time?
time. In fact, I, I, I just got laid off, and now I'm wondering, what do I do? What do I want to do with my life? Do I want to go to grad school? Do I want to go in this other direction? Do I want another job in a similar industry but a different function? And it's I feel like I'm being pulled in so many different directions.
Perfect. So this is exactly what human design and living in alignment with your strategy and authority helps with, is making decisions that are correct for you. And following your strategy and authority will help you to consistently make those correct decisions that help you to stay on the path that you're meant to live so that you can live out your purpose. So So it's a perfect time actually for you to find human design because it will help you to make those decisions you need to make.
Great.
And so, next question, does it feel challenging for you to hear your body's wisdom or messages, or like to kind of get that knowing about what is correct for you or which decision to make?
Very much. People say, well, you should trust your gut. And I live in my head where
Yeah.
I get all tangled up. And in the moments when I can drop into my body, yeah, it's all so clear, but it's not my natural, or, it's not my automatic go-to for whatever reason. Maybe we'll find out today why or
Yes.
why not. And I've also been very influenced by other people, other strong personalities in my life, like my parents, and uh, so it's a little bit difficult for me to hear. Plus, I had up until now, I've had a very nose to the grindstone kind of approach to things, where like, okay, I'm going to just focus in on this. This is all I'm going to do because I need to move heaven and earth to make this happen, and everything gets crowded out. So, yeah, hearing my body's wisdom and messages, like that's an area where I could use some practice, or have traditionally not been doing that. So,
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And really I think so many of us have been conditioned to think that our mind and logic and reasoning and strategy is the best guide for us in our lives. But the truth is there aren't any designs, right? None of the types or strategy or authority, none of us are best served by letting our mind make those choices and decisions. And that's one of the shifts that happened when we changed from seven-centered beings to nine-centered beings. So when we were seven-centered beings, like I said, it changed in the 1700s. So it's been hundreds of years since that's been the case. Um, those seven-centered beings were driven by the mind. And it's the mind that helped us to become the industrialized civilization that we live in now. And that is the change that happened when we shifted to nine, is that no longer is our mind designed or meant to be what helps us make decisions. And it's our body. And each of us have our own unique authorities that help us to know what's correct. And each authority has its own unique way of our body communicating with us. So that is definitely something that you'll learn here today too. So that's super exciting. All right. So the foundation of human design is learning to live in alignment with your strategy and authority. Okay. So you said that you have pulled up a chart before. Do you happen to remember what your strategy and authority are?
no, not at all. It was such a long time ago, and I looked at the chart and I didn't really get what was happening with it, and I said, maybe someday I'll take a workshop in this and figure this out. But and then I just kind of laid it aside.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. Actually, like that excites me to bet. And it can definitely feel overwhelming when you first look at human design, and especially when you don't know what you're looking at, and there's so much going on, and there's so much involved. But one thing that I want to start off by saying too is if you never ever learn anything other than what we're going to talk about here today about human design, that only learning your strategy and authority can help you to create like the best life possible that you can imagine. So there are almost unlimited layers to human design. And really, like if you never went to that level of human design and you just lived your strategy and authority, that would be enough and the rest of it would work itself out. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And so lately I've been turning from the attitude of like, okay, I need to really develop myself in all areas, including the areas of my weaknesses, and turning towards, okay, you know what? Like I have some really great strengths.
Hmm.
Let me play with those and leave these other things to like other people to do.
Right.
Other people are
Yeah.
great at these things.
Yes.
Um,
And enjoy them and love them and it lights them up and makes them feel happy and satisfied and all of those things.
yeah.
Yes.
So, it's like turning towards and looking at um, what flows from me naturally and what I'm really great at doing.
Yeah.
And Um, and there's also the moment of like, oh, what is that?
Yes, awesome. Okay. All right, so this is my chart, not yours, but I just wanted to kind of, especially for the people that are watching this recording, just show people when you get your free account with mybodygraph.com, there are two different ways that you can look at the site. Like, and it can be overwhelming to go to this site. So the first one is the talking body graph. And it does look a little bit different if you're looking at it on your phone than on the computer. And this is the view that I see on my computer when I do it. But you're looking for the information hub. And then you're going to find the strategy and authority, which when I say converted this into the platform here, it messed up the highlighting a little bit. But strategy and authority is under this yellow box here. And then you'll see the where you can click on the written out text where you can read about your strategy and authority. So there, when you see the icon of a book on this site, that's something you can read. And the ones that you see here that have triangles, these are audio. So if you're someone that likes to listen as opposed to read, then you can click on these. These are recorded by Ra Uru, who's the founder of Human Design. And I know for me personally, I tend to like to read things because I get impatient when somebody's talking to me and like, I just want you to get to the point, kind of like I get impatient. And also, when I first started Ra Uru, what he said didn't really fully land at first. Now I enjoy listening to him now that I've kind of studied some more of the basics on my own first. But so just know if you listen to the audios and it doesn't quite sit right, then just leave it for now, find other resources, and you can always come back to it later at some point. Okay. So I recommend going there though, read about your strategy and authority. And then the other way to look on this site is the My Body Graphs. And so it's somewhat similar, but a little bit different format. And then you're looking for the information and the chart properties. And it will list out your type, your strategy, and authority here on this page. But like I said, it's great to go to the other one, the talking body graphs, so you can actually read the full description of what that means. All right, so, and like I said, you're looking for the type, you're looking for the strategy, you're looking for the not self theme, the signature emotion here, and the authority. Now we're going to get Ellen to your chart. So this is your chart here. And you are a sacral generator. And so the strategy for a generator is to wait to respond. And so basically what that means is you have an aura as a generator that's open and enveloping. And when you're living in alignment with your design, you are naturally and like effortlessly going to attract the right opportunities, people, circumstances, situations that will help you find the correct path. So you don't need to, your mind doesn't need to like figure it out or plan it out or strategize or come up with the thing for you to go after next. When you are able to come in the energy of trust and surrender, knowing that the way that your energetic aura works is by drawing those opportunities to you. And the only thing that can kind of keep those things away is when you're operating from conditioning or from not self. And you do have several white centers in your chart. So you are definitely susceptible to a lot of energy from other people. But we'll go deeper into this here in a second. The other thing that's really key when it comes to being a generator are the signature emotion and not self emotion. So your signature emotion is satisfaction. So when you're doing the things that are correct for you, you're going to create a life that's full of satisfaction. Your not self emotion is frustration. So when you're not doing things that are correct for you, or when you're committing your energy to things that your authority didn't tell you were correct, then you're going to feel frustration. You're going to get frustrated. And as that generator, so what makes you the generator is this red square here. This is the sacral center. And this gives you consistent, reliable access to that life force energy. So when you're doing things that are correct for you, you're going to have consistent, reliable energy. And when it's correct, it's almost going to feel like an unlimited supply of energy. And you're going to wake up, you're going to do your work, you're going to feel really satisfied as you do it. At the end of the day, when it's time to stop working for the day, you're going to go to bed, you're going to easily fall asleep. You're going to wake up the next day refreshed, ready to go do it all over again. And so that's the advantage to being a generator is you do have that energy. And so when you find yourself feeling frustrated or feeling like you're overworked, overwhelmed, exhausted, burnt out, then you know you've consistently committed to things that weren't correct. Does that kind of make sense? Does that resonate at all to you?
Totally makes sense. And the you know the waiting to respond aspect is if you look at my life, I've been working completely against that.
Mm-hmm.
It's many times in my life I've made things happen out of sheer will, and it's exhausting.
Yes.
It's not energizing. It's not enlivening. I feel like I'm banging my head against the universe, making stuff happen.
Yes.
And yeah, like when I'm doing something that I really love and I feel aligned with, I could do it all day, all night, and twice on Sunday, right? But yeah, so interesting. Okay, I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, so those emotions, the signature and the not self, are your signpost. So that they tell you if you're doing a good job following your strategy and authority or not. Also, when you're not sure what to do, then that signature emotion is really key. So then the thing you want to ask yourself is, what can I do right now that would make me feel really satisfied? And just know it doesn't need to be something productive, or it doesn't need to feel like it's going to lead you to that next thing. It could be I take a nap, or I read this book I've been wanting to read, or I like do a puzzle, or whatever that is for you, that thing that makes you in the moment feel satisfied. And that energy, when you're in that energy of satisfaction, that's going to make you draw in those right opportunities to respond to.
So interesting. So when I return to satisfaction, then things can happen.
Yes.
Because the opposite of like nose to grindstone approach to life. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And so then your authority is also from that sacral center. You have the sacral authority. And so what that means is to know if something's correct for you, you need to use yes or no questions. And that truth, that knowing, that wisdom is in the moment, right? It's in the now. And what you're going to do is listen for those guttural responses. So it's like the uh-huh or for I don't know. And often in our society, we tend to condition people out of using those guttural sounds. And I don't know if you can relate with this, but often when we're kids, either our parents or our teachers will tell us to not say uh-huh or but to say yes or no, because that's the more proper way to speak. So do you feel like that's something that you were conditioned out of as a child?
Yeah. Sometimes my most authentic response is meow or or
That's awesome. And those could be your guttural sounds too, right? So there are variations. It's a little bit different for everyone.
Yeah.
But sometimes the first step is just reconnecting with those guttural sounds and not trying to like push them away or judge them as being wrong or not proper, and really just connecting.
So it's sort of like learning to speak from my gut again.
Yes.
Listening from my gut, learning to speak from my gut.
It's either listening or feeling. So it can be a little bit different. It can show up a little bit different for people too. Sometimes it's more of like, especially because you have this spleen here, which is the brown one over here, and you have this 34 to the 57. So this gate 57, and I won't go into all the gates today because it's more than we can cover in the time we have together today, but this is the most intuitive gate in the chart. So you
Oh,
actually have that intuitive knowing that can come faster even than that guttural response. So sometimes you're just going to know as long as you're allowing yourself to trust that. So the challenge here too is not to let the mind talk you out of trusting that in the moment truth and knowing that's coming to you from your body,
yeah, yeah.
which can be really challenging. Um, okay, so does that make sense so far?
It does. Thank you.
All right, so there are four types. I won't go through all these because I want to just keep talking about you. But there are four types. They each have their own strategy, their own signature emotion, their own not self emotion. So if you're watching this replay, you may want to like pause this so you can read about yours. And then the other thing we kind of touched on a little bit, and I won't go too deep into this too, is the aura mechanics. So how things operate on the energetic level. And like I said, for you as the generator, you have that open and enveloping aura. And your aura is there. It's designed to protect you. Following your strategy is there to protect you so that you don't experience that frustration or resistance from other people. And so the risk of not following your strategy and authority is trying to initiate and trying to make things happen and that energy only works well for manifestors. And it's only about 9% of the population that are manifestors, but most of us get conditioned to feel like we should be able to initiate. We should be able to that Nike slogan of just go do it and make it happen. And but the truth is that's not actually how your aura works. And when you initiate, then your aura can't protect you. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. So then, and there are seven authorities, and yours is the sacral, which comes from having that sacral center defined and your solar plexus undefined. And like we said, it's the yes or no questions and the truth and the now is how you follow that. And I won't go through all these other ones right now, but all right. So the next thing that we're going to look at on your chart are looking at all of those white centers, all of the undefined centers. And this is something else, this little chart here, this one isn't from your chart, but when you look under the My Body Graphs chart, under the information section, after you see where you can find your type and authority, there's a section where you'll see not self keynotes and not self questions. So because those white centers are where we're most vulnerable to operating from not self or from conditioning, looking at the keynotes for each center that you have and the question that helps you identify if it's that conditioning or that not self belief or energy that's kind of steering us to feel like we should be doing something or we should try to be like this or do this thing this way. And so reading those not self questions can really help you to identify if it's not self that's steering your motivation or if you're and identify when you're likely to not follow your strategy and authority. Does that kind of make sense? All right. So for you, you have three centers that are defined. We talked about the sacral. This is that life force energy. You also have this yellow one, which is the G center. And this is sense of love and identity and direction. So you're going to feel that sense of identity and direction and self-love on your own and not necessarily be looking for someone else to help you feel that. Whereas people that have this one undefined might feel like they need someone else to help them connect with that energy. And then the other one that you have defined is the spleen. And this one is all about health, well-being, it's intuition, it's instinct, it's all about survival. And the channels that you have here, these are really interesting channels. So they're all individual on the individual circuit. So you're here to live your authentic self-expression. And not only that, but these are all on the integration circuit. So it's kind of like a magnified energy of individual. And so you're here for self-empowerment. So you have a lot of energy when you're doing those correct things. And that energy is going to feel really attractive and magnetic to other people. But the energy that you have, it's for you. It's not for other people. So even though people are gonna kind of want to like tap into that energy and that uniqueness and creativity that you have,
Mm-hmm.
your goal is really to use that energy for your own self empowerment. And through that, not so that you can, but when you're living your unique, authentic self expression, then the natural byproduct is it will empower other people to be more their own unique self expression as well. So that's part of like those are your strengths, are living into how you're different and how you're unique, and really expressing those creative ideas for how you can make the world better. Does that resonate for you at all?
Very much. Yeah, very much. It, it's sort of the model of living by example and living from my, teaching from my own experience.
Yes.
And um, because I've learned to empower myself and inquire about myself, then I can also help other people look at themselves and maybe, and support them in their process of self actualization, self realization,
Yes.
figuring out their issues out very much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't have a slide for this, and I wasn't planning to talk about this, but yeah, looking at your profile, which
Mhm.
you can see in the numbers here, you've got the 6 on the sun and earth of your black side, and the 3 of the sun and the earth. Now, like I said, these are the gates. So the number before the decimal, I know this is a little bit small on the screen, but the number before the decimal is the gate number. The number after the decimal is the line of the hexagram that activates that gate. So there are 6 lines in the hexagram. So all of the numbers after the decimal will be 1 through 6. Now the sixes are here to be the role models. And sixes tend to experience 3 distinct stages in their life. So the first stage of your life, which is usually like late 20s, early 30s, um, oftentimes things kind of feel challenging or really difficult, or oftentimes for sixes, there's even some trauma that happens in that first stage. And then in the second stage, which happens, early 20s to late 20s to early 30s into like usually like the mid to late 50s, they tend to call this one like your aloof stage. They also talk about, you come up on the roof. And so you kind of have a tendency, people that are sixes, to kind of detach a little bit from the rest of the world. And they say you're on the roof because you're kind of from that detached place, kind of just looking out and observing and not necessarily getting involved with, like, you don't want to, you're really careful and selective about the people that whose energy you allow to affect you. And you don't really have time for all the drama and all the like, typical stuff that most people are seem to be obsessed with or involved in. And from that point, you're just kind of like looking at ahead to see what's going to come next. And then that third stage, that's when you really step into your role and that purpose you're meant to express as that role model. And so from everything you've learned in the first 2 stages of your life, now you take all those lessons and all that wisdom and all that experience, and then you become that role model that you're meant to be.
That makes total sense about where I am in my life. I feel like I'm about to complete stage 2, and how do I make the jump from 2 to 3? Yeah, interesting. Wow.
So yeah, you're definitely finding human design at the perfect time for you, for sure. It's so cool. Um, so, and then the threes are kind of um, here to learn things the hard way, right? They're here to it's like the school of hard knocks, right? Your threes are they're here to figure out what works by experiencing what doesn't work. And actually, in the first 2 stages of your life, the 6 is still like a 3 too. So you've kind of got like the double whammy for 3, where like you kind of have to learn things the hard way. You have to experience it for yourself. Someone can tell you, oh, don't go do that thing, because you want to like experience it so you can fully know it for yourself. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
It
that's
totally does.
interesting. Okay, so undefined centers. So I've got this section here for undefined centers, and then there's another category for the ones that are completely open. So the ones that are undefined in your chart have at least one gate active in that center. So you can see here we have the head. Oh, looks like I didn't pull out. I should have pulled out. You actually have three. I missed this one when I was making your slide earlier today. So this one's actually should be in the completely open because none of the gates here are gray, like have the gray circle or line going up to them. And then the throat, you do have some activations. This is the heart center here. And then your solar plexus and your root are both completely open. So first I'm going to go through the ones that are undefined. So you have the head. And so that not self question is, am I trying to answer everyone else's questions? So this head center, it's a pressure center, and it's that pressure to know. So it's that part of you that's going to come up with all the questions and want to understand all the things and understand how the world works. And so your mind is going to want to stay busy, like figuring things out and trying to figure out like what's important and, you know, where, how can I know what I need to know? And like this, so this can be really challenging too, because it really activates that part of your mind that wants to be in control. But the advantage here, the wisdom, is that you're able to kind of understand what people are thinking, even if they don't say it. So you're able to kind of pick up on. And so from not self, conditioning can cause you to spend too much time and too much energy trying to figure out other people's questions that aren't yours to answer. Does that kind of make sense?
Very much. Yeah.
And so the advantage here too, like you literally are open-minded. So you're able to see the world from other people's perspectives. You can kind of see like all of the different sides and all of the different arguments, and you're not fixed in your way of seeing the world. And then the ajna, this is where like ideas and concepts and perceptions and judgments kind of come in. So this is the part of your mind that's going to answer the questions that your open head wants to ask. And so the not self theme here is, am I trying to convince everyone that I'm certain? So oftentimes having this one undefined, it can be hard to admit when you don't know something, or if something's new, like you can kind of feel uncomfortable going into a new situation. You don't like to appear like you don't know, or you're not certain, you don't know what you're doing. And so oftentimes we can try to explain too much, or, try to prove that we know a lot, and we want people to see us as being really smart. And that kind of makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I've been that in many jobs.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you feel like you're doing something so that you can convince other people that you're certain, then you know that that's not self, that's conditioning that's driving that behavior, that decision. And then the next one is the throat center, and this is the communication and manifestation center. And the way that the body graph works, all of the energy in your chart is going to flow towards the throat so that it can be communicated or manifested. So when you have this one undefined, it can be challenging this isn't always the case. So everyone's a little bit unique and different. And, just because you have a weight center doesn't mean that you're definitely always operating from not self or from conditioning. You can have, even before you knew about human design, a healthy expression of an undefined center. So just know, as if any of this, as we talk about these white ones, doesn't resonate, it doesn't mean that human design's wrong. It just means that you're already a pretty aware and evolved and empowered person on your own. But so sometimes people can feel uncomfortable when it's silence, and they need to feel like they need to talk to fill in that silence. Or people can try to figure out the right thing to say to get noticed, or to get people to pay attention, or to convince people about certain things. So the not self question here is, am I trying to attract attention? Now the wisdom here, I think this one is actually a really great one that to have undefined, because the wisdom is that while you're not actually designed to plan out what you're going to say ahead of time. So like if you have like a speech or some type of speaking event, um, you may feel like you need to like memorize or really prepare ahead of time and like memorize the speech and what you're going to say. But the truth is, like, your magic will happen when you just show up and you trust the right thing's going to come out at the right time. And it's going to feel so much more natural. And even if after the fact, you can't remember what you said, that's typically when what you say is going to have the biggest impact. Does that kind of
I've had that experience where, sometimes there's something that I want to express, and especially when I'm feeling strong emotions, and I feel like I can't find the words, or I can't get a word in edgewise.
mm-hmm.
And then there's sometimes when especially when I'm working with someone, that's like, oh, I should take notes on that, on what I just said. It's pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right. Yeah,
interesting.
exactly. So you do have that potential for the wisdom to say exactly what someone needs to hear the way they need to hear it so that they understand it.
Yeah.
Um, and so it just comes from just trusting that you have this in your design, you have this wisdom, and just knowing that you don't necessarily have to plan it out and sometimes it helps to just have like an outline of the things that you want to cover and just let yourself speak from the moment. Okay. Oopsie. Okay.
Hmm.
Let's see. And next we have the heart center. And this is like where the ego comes in. This is where willpower comes in, and it's self-worth and self-value. So having this one white, you won't have consistent access to that. And I think this one can be really painful because I think we have a tendency to value willpower, right? In any area, whether it's food or it's exercise or it's work. And we feel like, oh, if I just had more willpower, I could be more productive, or I could be more successful, or I could reach that goal. But the truth is, you're not actually designed to have willpower or to use willpower to achieve your goals. Um,
Hmm.
and so the not self question here is, do I think I have something to prove? And and I think especially too when you have this one and you have the ajna that's undefined, like this can be really intense. Um, does that make sense? All right, and then finally we have the other two that are completely open. So the solar plexus, this is the emotional center. And I actually also have this one completely open. And so this means that you're going to be able to absorb and also amplify, like I mentioned earlier, the emotions that other people are feeling. And so in your own energy, you're likely to be able to stay pretty even keeled emotionally, right? Like just kind of neutral. And so most of the time when you're feeling really intense emotions, you're picking up and absorbing and amplifying emotions of other people. So you'll be able to kind of sense and feel what other people feel. Um, and because you don't have a gate, so having a gate active in a center gives you a frame of reference or a theme for how to process that energy. And when you don't have a gate activated and it's completely open, like this one is, it can feel more challenging because you don't have that frame of reference for how to process it. And it can feel more confusing. But still, it's still that duality, right? So the other side of that coin is this is even greater potential for wisdom because you are so fluid and flexible for how you process the energy that once you're aware of the energy that's not yours and you don't take on the stories or kind of identify with that emotion you're feeling, then you have even greater potential to understand other people and their emotions. So the not self theme here is avoiding confrontation and truth. So what that means is, if there's something that you see or recognize in someone, you from not self, you can have the potential to not want to say it or not want to hurt someone's feelings or make someone feel bad. And so avoiding that confrontation and truth kind of like, so that you can be kind or, you don't hurt anybody's feelings. Does that resonate for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Very much.
So,
Yeah.
Do you feel like you would describe yourself as being someone that's emotional?
Yes and no. I often have some level of anxiety that I'm trying to manage. And I think, yes, that comes from trying to prove something or trying to convince somebody of something. Um, Sometimes I take on responsibility for other people's feelings, like their anger or their anxiousness.
Hmm.
It's not mine to
Right.
take on, but I want to. I'm uncomfortable. It's like there's no barrier. Like I'm in the moment. I'm taking on trying to resolve their anger, even though I also get that it's really just not mine to deal with.
Right.
Um, and but at, but at the same time, um, people do say that I'm calm,
Hmm.
that I'm and it again, it's so interesting that dichotomy, because maybe my stomach's a little bit in knots, but I look calm and steady.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I can totally relate with everything that you just said too. And so for me, one of the things that's helped me more than anything is when I feel those intense emotions, and especially like there were times when I would feel this really intense like tightness in my chest and like anxiety and all of the normal things like meditating or taking a nap or doing other, exercising wouldn't help it to release, and I wouldn't know how to handle it. And then I would remember to ask myself, is this mine? And as soon as I asked that question, it would dissipate and nothing else would work, right? Because like I was feeling like, oh, there's this thing that I need to fix or work through. But the truth was, it wasn't even my emotion. It wasn't my thing to fix or work through. And in just remembering to ask, is this mine? Like that's been a huge thing, relief for me. So,
Hmm. I'll try it.
and yeah, for sure. And then the last one that you have is the root center, which again, you have this completely open. So this one can feel more intense, but again, it's also great potential for wisdom. And this is the other pressure center, and this one's the pressure to do. And so this one can, I think, especially now, can kind of creep up on you, especially if you're around other people that have this root center defined. And the conditioning here can be really intense. Just being in someone's aura that has this one defined, even if they don't do anything or say anything, we absorb that energy and feel like we should be doing more or like, And so this one's all about drive and motivation. And um, the not self question here is, am I in a hurry to be free of the pressure? So can you kind of relate with that one? Yeah. So what ends up happening when we make decisions because we want to be free of that pressure and we're in that hurry to be free of the pressure is we have this thing, we work really hard, we really push through so that we can get the relief on the other side. But from that energy, when that thing finishes, then what we attract is another big thing to hurry up and get done. To now we have this new thing, this new pressure that we have to like. So just know that when you're feeling that like pressure to do, that's a signal that it's best for you to like just be still and get quiet and get still and wait for the thing to respond to, that you get that guttural response that says this is the correct thing for me to do. And what's good about having that sacral authority is you can check in at any time. You can ask the yes or no question and listen for that guttural response. And if you get the no, then just trust and don't let your mind try to like logic you or other people make you feel guilty that, oh, you should be doing this. And if I don't do this, then they're going to think I'm lazy or they're going to think, I'm crazy or whatever it is that those thoughts are. Um, just know that your sacral guttural response will always lead you to the path where the right opportunities will come. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's so different than the way I'm used to operating,
Mm-hmm.
especially now because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know like where my next job is coming from, And my, I like on the one side, I want to be an inquiry because like I really want to move to the next whatever happy ever after. But on the other hand, there's like, I've got a mortgage, I need to work now, the job market is not good, not really great right now. So there's that like, okay, let's just grab something.
Mm.
And that's one of the ways I'm being kind of torn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
And
much.
that really sounds to me like it's that undefined root making you want to be free of that pressure,
Yeah.
right? Free of that. Yeah. Okay. So when you think about that decision and you think about your strategy to wait to respond and your authority of sacral, how might that look for this decision that you have to make now of what to do next for work?
Um, I guess, and this is not total, this is completely different than my life experience, but I imagine that it would be like maybe I send out some applications to things that look good, the jobs that listings that seem to maybe be a good fit, or talk to some friends and let them know
Would
what's
that
happening.
would that feel satisfying?
No, because no,
So
like
it's not the right
no,
thing. Right.
no.
So
That's
yeah.
that's proactive. That's like initiating again.
Yeah, that's the mind, right? Trying to like plan out the thing that makes sense. So what's something you could do today, whether productive or not,
Yeah.
that would feel really satisfying?
Um, there's some, I have some plants that need repotting. I want to clean up my garden a little bit. Um, uh, being out in nature.
Yeah. And those,
Yeah.
would that feel satisfying?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the key. And as you do those things, you do that next little thing that feels satisfying, then
Yeah.
that puts you in the right energy to attract something to respond to. And that's how that next dream job or that next career opportunity comes
Wow.
by following those little breadcrumbs of what feels satisfying. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
checking in, is this the correct thing for me to do right now? Because again, it's only in the moment, right? It's the now knowing. So do you feel like you can do that today?
I will. I'll. Yes. Yes.
Perfect.
That's something I'll take on for today.
Okay, awesome. All right,
Uh,
so let's see. All right, I'm gonna skip that one. All right, so when you think about the way that you've been living up to now, does it feel like you are living in alignment with your style of what? No?
no, I would actually. I told I've been saying to people that my marketing background, like I really had there were some moments of satisfaction. I'm proud of what I did. I think I served my customers and my clients, to the best of my ability, and we did some great things together. That was satisfying. And I've had a lot of jobs where I had to be somebody else at work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so interesting that we're talking about like, yeah, like being like someone else
Mm-hmm.
and not in alignment. And I'm trying to figure out again the figuring, the searching, the initiating. Like what does living in alignment actually look like for me?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yep. And satisfaction will be that guide for you. And that's the only thing that you have to ask yourself. Will this make me feel satisfied right now?
Wow, that's so different.
Yes.
That's so different.
Yes.
I see how that makes sense. and there's all the, the lights and whistles saying, wait a minute, that's not how to do things.
Your mind is totally going to fight it too, for sure. Like that's part of the process. And it's just one thing I'll say too is this is something for you to experiment with, for you to play with and see how it really looks and feels for you. And there's no right way or wrong way to do it. There's only the way that works for you. And this is really about you living your uniqueness, what makes you different. And there isn't any box you need to fit in. And especially with your design, with those channels you have, you're here to be different. You're here to be unique and really live that full, authentic self expression. And that is going to be what guides you too, of like, how can I really fully express myself today in a way that feels satisfying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any other questions?
I have so many, but I'm sure we have to end the session sometime. But thank you for, the immediate insight and the, basics about how to look at the chart and read the chart. And I'm excited to go to that website and dig in even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you ever feel inspired to reach out, feel free at any time. Okay. And then thank you so much too for doing this. It's definitely a whole lot more fun to do it with someone and like hear the insights and kind of get the feedback as opposed to me just sitting here by myself. And so for those of you who are watching this recording, if you want to know what's next, I would love to look at your chart with you. And there is a button where you can message Melissa Wright over on the right side of the screen, and feel free to just click on that button, send me a message, and we can talk about the best way for you to look at your chart and go through your chart together in a way that makes most sense for you. So again, Ellen, thank you so much.
No, thank
Such
you.
a joy to spend this time with you today. And
thank you. This came at exactly the right time.
Yeah,
interesting. Oh yeah, perhaps I attracted that.
You did, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.